Okay, Millie, if you're available online, I'm sorry for jumping ahead.
No, that's all right. Can everyone hear and see me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Millie, and I'm a late diagnosed autistic, and I was diagnosed at 31 years of age. I have nearly completed honours in the Bachelor of Disability and Developmental Education at Flinders University. And the topic of my presentation is based on my nearly completed honours study, which was exploring South Australian women's, including AFAB and non-binary people's experiences of being diagnosed as autistic in adulthood. It investigated the factors that led women, including AFAB and non-binary people, to seek a formal autism diagnosis, their views on the diagnostic process, barriers to obtaining a formal adult diagnosis as women or AFAB non-binary people, and their experiences following an adult diagnosis. I was able to interview 9 participants, and the age range of participants at diagnosis was between 23 and 40 years. Next slide, please. There were 5 themes. So the first theme was motivations for seeking a formal autism diagnosis. So before seeking a diagnosis, participants had reasons for suspecting that they might be autistic, or others had raised suspicions that they might be autistic. Most participants sought a formal ASD diagnosis to validate or confirm their self-diagnosis, which may have been due to them doubting their own conclusions, or feeling fraudulent, or they were invalidated by others. Another reason was to access supports from government services such as the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Theme 2, so the diagnostic process. Barriers around accessing a formal diagnosis were identified and included the cost of diagnosis, health professionals being dismissive about participants' self-diagnosis, not knowing where to access a formal diagnosis, and experiencing long wait times for assessments. But there are positive aspects of the process that were identified, including participants having positive opinions about the clinicians and the process, including finding the clinicians were knowledgeable around autism and gender. However, despite seeking a formal diagnosis, because they self-diagnosed, most participants experienced imposter syndrome, where they still doubted their self-diagnosis. Next slide, please. The third thing was post-diagnostic experiences. So most participants felt relieved to have their diagnosis confirmed and validated. They experienced a period of self-reflection and biographical illumination, which is where they framed their life histories and memories through an autism lens. For some, though, they still had imposter syndrome, where they felt that they weren't autistic enough based on other people's presentations of autism, and increase their understanding of themselves and autism, including developing a sense of autistic pride. Theme 4 was post-diagnostic supports. So having a formal diagnosis unlocks supports in areas such as providing access to supports and resources and support services like the NDIS. However, this was not a smooth process for all participants, as they experienced barriers to accessing these supports, such as long waiting lists to see therapists, and relying upon themselves to find and connect to supports. Next slide, please. So the last theme was theories around late diagnosis, gender and diversity in autism. So they identified that in the past there was a lack of understanding on how girls and women, AFAB non-binary people, mask their autistic traits, and the diversity in autism presentations meant that that autism wasn't detected sooner. Differences in how participants displayed autistic traits were judged based on stereotypical understanding of autism and sexist gender assumptions. In conclusion, so the main motivation to seek a diagnosis was to confirm their self-diagnosis. They experienced barriers when accessing a formal diagnosis, including the cost of diagnosis, professionals being dismissive and long wait times. While a diagnosis provided participants access to supports, this was not smooth for all participants. Despite feeling relieved to have their diagnosis confirmed, some still experienced imposter syndrome, and participants had theories around why they were diagnosed later, including lack of understanding of the diversity and gender in autism presentations meant that they were not detected earlier. While the diagnosis provided participants access to support, this was not smooth or easy for all participants. Oh no, I've already said that. Next slide, sorry about that. So how can we best support women, including AFAB and non-binary people, to access autism diagnosis and support? So better training for gatekeepers, so that's GPs, psychologists, etc., to adult autism diagnoses on the diversity of autism presentations, improving access to diagnostic assessments by providing significant subsidies and more clinicians that do adult assessments, improve access to post-diagnostic supports for late diagnosed women, including AFAB and non-binary people, by removing the barriers like the ones I've mentioned previously, and improve communities' understanding of the diversity of autism through public campaigns.
Thank you.